I had $24,000 in debt, a single income, and 4 small kids. And the part that haunted me wasn't the number. It was that I generally didn't know why I kept spending. Boredom, loneliness, stress, sometimes just excitement. Shopping felt something that I couldn't name. What I didn't know was that I had ADHD, and with it, a dopamine deficit I was constantly trying to fix without realizing it. I wasn't bad with money. My brain was running on empty, and shopping was the fastest refill that I could find. Welcome to The Distracted Dollar, the podcast where we talk about money through the lens of ADHD, real life, and real struggles. I'm Vanessa, your ADHD money coach, and we're here to move from chaos to control. So what if compulsive shopping isn't a character flaw at all? What if specific traits predict it and ADHD stacks every single one? Now, before we get into ADHD specifically, we need to get the definition right because most people are thinking about the wrong thing. Loving a good deal is not compulsive shopping. Grabbing something off the shelf without planning to isn't either. That's impulsive buying, and it's different. Impulsive buying is the unplanned or spur of the moment. Compulsive buying is repetitive, hard to stop, and it causes real harm, financial, emotional, and relational. The urge keeps coming back even when you know it's making things worse. That's the version we're talking about. Researchers wanted to know whether certain personality traits make someone more likely to end up there. They looked at what they called disvalues, undesirable traits and emotions, and found 4 that consistently predicted compulsive shopping behavior. Anger, spending as an emotional release. When feelings get too big to sit with, a purchase offers a fast moment of control. It's reactive. It works. Temporarily. Envy, buying to close the gap. You see what someone else has, you feel the sting of not having it, and shopping becomes a way to level the playing field in your own head. Gluttony, no natural stopping point. One item becomes 5, a quick browse turns into a full cart, the threshold keeps moving, and there's no internal signal that says enough. Pride, purchases as proof of worth. What you own starts to reflect who you are to yourself and everyone watching. The same study also found 2 traits that work in the opposite direction that actually protect against compulsive shopping. Consciousness, the ability to pause, plan, and ask, do I need this? Can I afford this before acting? And agreeableness, a kind of social and emotional awareness that creates a natural break before an impulse turns into transaction. ADHD doesn't just weaken one of these breaks, it removes both of them and then pours fuel on everything left behind. ADHD is not just a focus problem. At its core, it's a self-regulation disorder. Self-regulation is exactly the resource you need to stop compulsive spending before it starts. Research on ADHD and personality consistently finds the same patterns. 3 traits show up together: low consciousness, low agreeableness, and high neuroticism. Not by coincidence, because of how ADHD affects the brain. Different dimensions of ADHD actually predict different traits. Low consciousness is driven by inattention. That internal pause before a purchase, do I need this? Can I afford this? Requires planning, organization, and follow through. ADHD makes all 3 harder, so the buffer that's supposed to slow you down before you spend gets thinner. Sometimes it disappears entirely. Low agreeableness is driven by hyperactivity and impulsivity. The break that's supposed to say, wait, before you act on an urge. Impulsivity overrides it fast every time before the slower thinking brain gets a chance to weigh in. And then there's the neuroticism, the trait that research found amplifies everything else. Neuroticism is the tendency toward emotional instability, anxiety, frustration, sadness, an intense reaction to stress. People high in neuroticism don't just feel those emotions, they feel them harder, longer, and with less ability to recover. ADHD is strongly correlated with higher neuroticism, and that matters enormously here because compulsive shopping is at its core an emotional regulation strategy. When your emotions feel unmanageable, spending offers instant relief. The higher your neuroticism, the more you need that relief, and the harder it becomes to stop once you found it. The darker traits hit harder, the productive traits matter less. The spiral moves faster. Now, add in the dopamine piece. ADHD brains run on a chronic dopamine deficit, what some researchers call the reward deficit syndrome. The brain is understimulated and constantly searching for something to fix that. Shopping is stimulating. It's novel. It delivers an immediate reward. The anticipation, the click, the confirmation email, the waiting for the package. For the ADHD brain, that pull isn't a preference or a personality quirk, it's neurological. The brain found something that works and remembers. Women with ADHD carry a specific version of this worth naming directly. Most were diagnosed late, or never diagnosed at all. ADHD in women presents differently, quieter, more internal, easier to overlook. So for years, sometimes decades, they managed without any explanation for what was happening. What they got instead was a label: too emotional, too impulsive, too scattered, bad with money. The research tells a different story. Women with ADHD have significantly higher rates of anxiety and depression than the general population, which means higher nyctism and the exact trait that amplifies compulsive spending. They already have lower consciousness and lower agreeableness, the two traits that protect against it. They have ADHD-driven dopamine dysregulation, and shopping is fast, cheap dopamine. Every risk factor is present. Every protective factor was removed, and nobody told them this was neurological. They just believed the label. This isn't a moral failure running on willpower. It's a predictable outcome written in the personality profile that ADHD creates, that modern retail environment was specifically designed to exploit. The retail environment is not neutral. It was engineered deliberately, methodologically, to exploit exactly the vulnerabilities we just talked through. One-click purchasing removes the pause between wanting and buying. Countdown timers such as urgency to decisions that don't have any. Only 3 left in stock. Sale ends in 11 minutes. These aren't accidents of design. They're precision tools built to override inhibition in anyone whose brakes are already weak. For an ADHD brain, where that brake system is already compromised by neurology, these features aren't just persuasive, they're almost unfair. Here's something that makes this more concrete. When you pay with cash, your brain activates a region called the insula, sometimes called the pain center. It registers financial loss as something generally averse, and that aversion slows you down. When you pay digitally, that signal gets dampened. The loss becomes abstract, just a number changing on a screen, and the emotional cost of spending drops. Behavioral studies show that people spend 12 to 18% more when using a card instead of cash. For an ADHD brain that already has weakened inhibition, stripping out the last sense of signal of loss matters a lot more than 12%. Contactless payments sit at the extreme end of that spectrum. Tap, and it's done before your brain has registered anything that happened. And buy now, pay later takes this further in a different direction. The dopamine hit lands today. The financial pain arrives in the bill weeks from now. ADHD brains are wired for the present. By the time the costs show up, the reward is long gone and the connection between the two barely registers. Then there's rejection sensitivity, one of the most undertalked ADHD traits. And social media advertising knows exactly where to aim. Targeted ads are built to show you what other people have, to create the sting of the gap between their life and yours. That sting is envy. One of the 4 traits the research found directly predicts compulsive shopping. The algorithm didn't stumble into that. It found the wound and keeps pressing it. So, if retailers engineer environments to exploit your brain, the counter move is not willpower, it's engineering your environment back. App blockers create distance between the impulse and the action. That gap, even 10 minutes, is often enough for the urge to lose its grip. I've heard a good thing about a device called the brick, which physically cuts your internet access. No compensation for saying that. Just for an ADHD brain that needs external structure, the physical object that reinforces a boundary is more reliable than an internal rule you have to remember to follow. And one of my clients loved books, not casually. She bought constantly, and the spending was adding up. We didn't tell her to stop. Restricting something an ADHD brain loves just creates shame and a rebound. Instead, we built her a dedicated fund called Books with a monthly cap. She could spend from it freely, and when it was gone until next month. Her brain got to keep the itch scratching, the spiral stopped. The system worked because it worked with how her brain actually operates, not against it. That's the whole idea. You don't need more willpower. You need a better designed environment and a system that accounts for how your brain actually works. Compulsive shopping is not a moral failure. It's a predictable outcome. Specific neurological traits meeting a retail environment that was built to exploit them. When you know that, you stop blaming yourself and start building differently. If you want to know how your brain spends, take the quiz linked below. It'll show you your spender type and where to start. Subscribe if you want more systems built for ADHD brains, and share this with someone who still thinks they're just bad with money. Until next time, from chaos to control.